welcome to my channel. I'm Zodiac Man, and today we're going to be predicting who I think is going to be the first one to die in Campaign 4. Now, technically, someone has already died. However, I'm talking about something that's not planned, something that's not, in the cards for a character specifically so they could have a moment so he could come back to life or anything like that. This is going to be a true raw moment, something that happens, wasn't expected. It's just the consequences of bad rolls and bad combat, bad choices. So that's what we're doing today. So potential spoiler warning for who might die, and just potential spoilers just in general for everything else that's happened in Critical Role so far. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to give a prediction for each table, and I know we only have one table at the moment that's been confirmed, but I made a predictions video as to where I think the tables will end up. So I'm going to base my prediction on who's going to die on each table based on that prediction. So if you haven't seen that video, I recommend you go and watch that video so you know what tables I think are going to exist, and then from there you'll understand better why I think these people are going to die, or just the groupings in general of who is together and who's not together. And once I'm done with giving my predictions on the three tables, I'm then going to sort of break it down even further and say out of which three, like which one of the three is in the worst position. And then after that, I'm going to talk about like which death I think would be most impactful to the story as of episode 4. Who, if they died out of every single character at the table, would leave the biggest impact. So those are what we're going to be talking about here today. So again, spoilers, because if I'm right, and I'm always wrong, there could be some spoilers. So starting off with the soldiers table, I believe Wick is in the worst position out of everybody at this table. First of all, he has the lowest HP at this table, and he has the lowest HP of all 13 characters, and he's actually tied for second lowest AC in the entire group as well, tied with Tyranny, with only one person having lower AC, but Murray can actually circumvent this with a couple of spells. So realistically, Wick is in last for his AC as long as Murray still has some spell slots. But overall, that's a terrible combination. Being extremely hittable and having no health, that makes you pretty well a glass cannon, which is what it looks like Wick is if he's a sorcerer. So hopefully he gets something else to put on top of his robe so he's not just completely screwed here, because he is in a bad shape to have that little health and this bad AC. On top of all of that, if he starts healing people while they're in combat, he will become a target. Healers naturally just end up becoming targets because they're going to prolong the fight. So just making them targets is a good move if you're an enemy. So he's a target on the battlefield, but on top of that, he's a literal target of his family. He knows their secrets, he knows too much, and if he's kept alive, that's going to be dangerous. And they're going into, a location in Timony where people are related to him. They will have the information of Wick is dangerous, get rid of him. So if he is seen on the road or in Timony or in anywhere by family members, the Halo of our family is going to seek and destroy him. It's likely that Tyranny might also be a target, but I feel like she's in slightly better shape with a bit more HP than he has. She does have the same AC as him, but I do believe that his HP is really bad, and he will be more of a target based on the fact that if he is a Divine Soul Sorcerer, or even if he is truly just a Cleric, he will be in a bad position because he is the healer. He's going to put himself in bad positions. Not to mention, I don't think Wick is all that smart, and Sam is going to play that through and through. So in my opinion, he's just going to put himself in a lot of bad positions, and his abilities are just going to naturally put him there as well. So low AC, low HP, bad positioning on the battlefield. I just get the feeling this character is not going to have an easy time in the early parts of the campaign. As time goes on, things are going to likely change for the character as he becomes more powerful, but as of right now in the early game, I think he is at the biggest risk at the soldiers table. Even Thimble, a character who has very low HP, the second lowest at the soldiers table, she has a lot of AC. So I realistically think she's going to be fine, especially in the early game where monsters and enemies won't have the highest stats to be able to hit people. And it's likely that not every fight is going to be like the fight at the Davos Estate where they're fighting extremely powerful entities. I get the feeling that there's going to be a lot of low level encounters, especially for this table, because it's going to be more combat oriented. So something tells me that her high AC is going to matter. Her low HP is not going to hurt her that much compared to Wick with that low AC. And I said that Tyranny has low HP. That's not true. She actually has the third highest on at that table, which is, she's in the middle. She has 30, and then the other two above her have 34 and 36. So you know, she's right in the middle of the pack when it comes to her HP. In my opinion, Wick has the worst AC, the worst HP, and is likely to become a target, so realistically, he's in danger. So moving on to the Schemers table, or my theorized Schemers table, I have Hal, who again has low HP and low AC, 23 HP and 13 AC. Now, for me, this wouldn't be too much of an issue if he just stood back and was like truly a support type character, giving out bardic inspirations, doing a little healing words here and there, maybe doing some like Tasha's hideous laughter and stuff like that, or, you know, all that sort of stuff that happens with a bard. If that stuff was happening, I don't think he'd be as big of a like threat on the battlefield, and people might just ignore him, and his low AC and his low health wouldn't really hurt him all that much. But he picked up the sword. He picked up the Liar's Blade, which means, to me, it's very likely he's going to try to be like an up-close and personal fighter with that sword. He's going to try to be Thiazi, and he's going to try to, you know, cut people down, which is going to put him in a really bad position as far as I'm concerned. He's going to try to protect people. He's going to put himself in harm's way, and I just don't think he has the HP or the AC to be able to do that, and it's going to put him in a very bad position yet again. If we look at the rest of this table, we have Julian, Murray, Hal, and Azune. This is my theorized Schemers group. So if we look at this table, Azune has 20 AC and 30 HP. He's a tank. He's in good shape. Not to mention he has a bit of paladin healing. He will be fine as far as I'm concerned. Julian is also a monster. He has damn near 40 HP. He's going to be able to stay in the fight for as long as he wants, and with second wind, he's going to be able to stay in there longer. So those two are fine. The one that's sort of in question is Murray, and, you know, she has 9 AC, but I do think that she has like some spell slots that she could use for shield and mage armor, to the point where that won't matter anymore. Her AC will go up to a 13 with mage armor, which will just tie Hal's, and then she has more health than Hal, so it doesn't matter anymore. And a shield will temporarily boost her up to 15, in which case she's fine. Actually, is it 14? Doesn't matter. Either way, she still would be above Hal's AC, so she'd be in a better position, but also she is going to stay further back and out of the fight. So in my opinion, she's just going to be in better positioning than Hal will be if he picks up that sword and starts using it the way I think he's going to use it. So as far as I'm concerned, with his low HP, his low AC, and his likely position trying to use that sword in combat, I just think he's going to be in deep shit 24/7. So Hal, you're in danger. So then we have the Seekers table, who, in my list that I've come up with, is made up of Octus, Valus, Taisha, and Belair. So for me, looking at all of them, I was like, who is the one who's like in the most, you know, danger? And for me, it's Octus. Octus is in a very bad position. We already saw things go horribly wrong for him. Like, he is a massive target by his family. Like, he is an issue to his family. So due to that, I think he's in a really bad position for like the other Sundered houses to go after him, because it sounds like everyone's going to be keeping up with the Taconuses. You know, they're trying to play that game, and they're trying to like make sure that he is going to be taken out so they can be in favor of them, so they don't get Divinosed, right? Or Roist. You don't want to end up being one of those families who gets destroyed. So he is going to be a massive target to not just his own family and the Halovar family, but the Cormorets and any other houses that are sundered in Dolmakyar. So realistically, with this massive target, as far as like story-wise, he is going to get targeted basically until they deal with the Taconis family, which is likely going to be end game of the campaign. So I just think he's in a really bad position overall. Not to mention, like I said, he's had really, really bad luck in combat so far. And while I don't want to focus on luck, because that means Thimble could also be in a lot of danger, I just feel like something is carrying around this character that has bad luck just in general. Because not only did like his combat rolls go bad, but I'm pretty damn sure almost every roll outside of combat he's had has also gone bad. So something just feels off about this character, and if there's going to be assassination attempts going towards him, bad rolls are going to come his way, whether it be bad rolls from him rolling or good rolls from Brennan, like that happened with that natural 20 which outright killed him. We're going to see some danger towards this character, I think. I think there's some sort of ill omen surrounding him. And unlike last time, it won't be planned. There won't be a planned death and planned revival. It'll just be a death for this character, which, you know, might be a little rough. That being said, I'm pretty sure the Hollow one does have an ability that like lets them come back with 1 HP if they roll well enough. So if he rolls well after getting dropped and then gets himself out of the fight, maybe he can survive. I just feel like everybody else at this table is in a bit better shape than he is, and, you know, he's going to be in a bad spot. That being said, Taisha doesn't get to have, like, extra health pools anymore, but I still think she's going to be in better shape than he will be in the long run because she isn't as much of a target to the Sundered Houses as he is. Actually, one thing I want to note, because I thought it was odd as I was looking at all the character sheets and stuff, I've touched on like the AC and the HP of the 3 people who I think are in like rough shape. I want to point out Murray's HP for a second. As a wizard, she should have 3d6 hit points, and with a 16 in her con, she has a +3 to that. So even if she rolled her maximum HP all 3 times, or well, the 2 times, because you start with max and then you get to roll for the 2 after that. So even if she rolled the 2 times after level 1 at max, she should have 27 HP. So something is a little off here, and I don't know if it's this screenshot. Maybe I grabbed one from like the early game before they fixed it. I'm not too sure, but something doesn't add up. She should have 27 HP if she rolled max. So 30 is a little weird. So unless she has some sort of magic item that buffs her, I don't know. But on top of that, like I said earlier, I don't think she's in danger because yes, her health may be wrong on here. I still think her AC is a bit of a lie because she will be able to mage armor and she will be able to shield. So realistically, while the health is a little sketchy, I think the rest of it's fine. So I think Murray's safe. So out of these 3, who do I think is in the worst shape? Honestly, if I'm being real, it's probably just Wick, because they are going to be the ones with the most combat happening. So he's going to be in the position to die the most out of everybody else. The other characters are going to be like learning lore information, learning information about houses, and like, you know, sort of talking a lot, role playing a lot. So those characters aren't going to be in as danger as much as a soldier's table character will be. So just from that in general, I do think Wick is in a really rough position because not only is he going to be fighting a lot, again, he does have a target on his back. So overall, while things like this are happening with those characters, like they're going to be talking, they're going to be RPing, they're going to be investigating, they're going to be looking for things, they're going to be a bit safer just in general in the long run than the soldier's table. So I do just have to sort of put the pin on Wick being in the most danger out of all of them dying, but this is just a prediction. I do think that there's a chance that I'm going to be wrong, and if I ever have made a prediction that was right, I don't remember it because I am terrible at making predictions. So I'm curious to know what you guys think and who you guys think will be the ones who die first. However, we do have another conversation I want to have about who I think would be the most impactful death at the table. So now, out of all the people at the table, who do I think would leave the biggest impact if they were to die? And for me, it is pretty simple. And honestly, I feel like most people might agree with this. It is either going to be Hal or Tysha. If one of them die, they'll make the biggest waves in the story. Let's start with Hal. If Hal dies, for Thimble, specifically for Thimble, not only did she lose Thiazi, but now she's lost his brother, the person that Thiazi wanted to protect the most in this world, and, you know, wanted to keep him out of the dirty line of work that they were in, which he was brought into because of Thiazi dying. But on top of all of that, with her not being there to help Hal, she's going to blame herself yet again for not being in a position and not being able to protect her own family. So she might even spiral further down into a potential depression story. I don't know if she's necessarily in a depression story, and she might be, and honestly, I wouldn't blame her if she was. But realistically, this character not being able to save 2 people would be brutal for her, especially because I would imagine Hal, in her opinion, is somewhat like a brother, because if she is, you know, an equal to Thiazi, that means she should look at Hal as some sort of an equal as well. Maybe even she looks at him as a younger brother. So this would be a horrible thing for her to experience. Not only has she lost this person who she cares about for the most in her world, but the person that Thiazi cares about the most in his world would be dead now too, because Hal is the person that Thiazi wanted to protect the most. So I could just, you know, Hal's death for Thimble would be brutal. And then for Blair, it would mean the person that he trusted the most in this world would also be gone. The person who made it seem like it was possible for Blair to be able to grow and learn and change as a person in the first place. The person he wanted to share his secret with before Thiazi stepped in. If Hal dies, I could see Blair growing even more pissed off towards Thiazi, as Thiazi is the reason that Hal is now involved in everything, and Thiazi would be the inspiration that Hal took into, you know, like stepping into Thiazi's role. He would want to live up to Thiazi's role, and Blair would definitely blame Thiazi even more and hate him even more, and maybe even start to like besmirch his name a lot more publicly if Hal were to die because of all the stuff that Thiazi has done. Thiazi is the reason the story is in motion as is. So Blair is probably just pissed in every single direction because things are not going the way that he wants them to because of Thiazi. So if Hal, the person he trusts the most in this world, were to die, I could see a spiraling staircase for this character as well. That would end very badly, and maybe even could end with some PvP, which I think would be rather interesting. On top of that, Hal would also leave behind 3 kids. He would have Alagar, Sadia, and Hero, and yes, while they would all still have their moms, potentially, depending on how things go, they would have to go without a father, and I could easily see any one of them becoming Liam's player character if he so chose to do so. That would be a weird way to put that sentence, but whatever. Alagar would be like the most direct in my opinion. He would step up and stand beside his mentor Julian, or someone he's trained with in Julian, to fight back against these Sundered Houses, which would make him an orc wearing the Barrow Guard symbol, fighting back against the Sundered Houses, fighting back against the Taconis family, kind of like Octus's vision when he was dead. Interesting. And then Sadia and Hero, they're both performers, and in some form or fashion, they're both probably bards. So if Liam wanted to pick up his story again as a bard, I could easily see either one of them stepping up into the role. I'm not sure how old Hero is, but Sadia is like in her 20s, I believe, and I would imagine Hero's not too far behind. So realistically, I don't see that being an issue. Like, they're not kids, but they're like in his mind, his kids. So realistically, I could see either of these two characters stepping up into the role of Liam's player character if he really wanted to, which I think would be rather unique and fun to see. It would be very much similar to how Sam went from playing Veth to occasionally playing Luke, and like him sort of picking up that torch for that character. I think it'd be really interesting and really fun to see. But out of all of them, the 3 choices that Liam would have out of his kids, Alagar would be the coolest because he would be like the orc wearing the Barrow Guard symbol, stepping up to fight against the Taconis family, like Octus's vision. I think that is a really cool idea for him to, have planted these seeds just in case Hal dies, and now he can pick up that character. I think that'd be really cool. And then for the rest of the table, they would sort of feel bad about it all happening as well, about how Thiazi sort of pulled Hal into everything that's happened with his schemes and all that sort of stuff. Teor, Azune, and Cadigan would feel bad because Hal was brought in because of Thiazi, and that Thiazi was like their comrade and they couldn't protect their comrade's younger brother. Wick would feel bad because he couldn't help Thiazi, and if he did, maybe Hal would still be alive. Tyranny would be sort of on the same line of that. Taisha would obviously feel bad if her, former lover or potentially still love interest died as well. Like all of these characters would have some sort of feelings about Hal dying. I feel like there are some characters who don't necessarily have another person who'd be like, oh, well, if that guy died, it doesn't really hurt me all that much. But if this guy died, that would hurt more. And Hal is that guy for most people at the table as far as I'm concerned. Now, the same thing I said about the kids for Hal also works if Taisha were to die. Alagar would be stepping up to get revenge for his mother alongside his father and his mentor Julian, which I think would be a really cool decision if like Abria were to play Alagar, right? The idea that Abria could step into this role and step in beside Hal, which would be really cool, and beside Julian, which would be really cool. So like we have the brother of Thiazi, the warrior that Julian took in, and then we have the warrior that Julian is training. And then we have Julian, right? We'd have this weird trifecta of characters standing next to each other, who were at some point in a weird position with each other. Like Julian was against Hal, and then Hal was sort of, Hal was against Julian, and then Alagar was sort of split between the two. And now the 3 of them sort of standing together would be a really cool symbol, as far as I'm concerned, against like standing together against the Taconis family. And it could also sort of like play into Julian's growth as a character, but who knows? We have no idea right now where that's going to play out or how that's going to play out, and it's going to be a while before we learn. But I do think it'd be really cool to see that imagery of Hal, Alagar, and Julian standing together. On top of that, I could really see Sadia being the character that Abria plays, as, she would want to fill the shoes that her mother left behind of trying to make the world a better place. That whole conversation that they had in episode 3, I believe it was episode 3, but the whole conversation they had together as a group it might have been episode 4, was like really impactful, and like the way that she like displayed her emotions about how she felt about her mom leaving. So if her mom were to leave again and then to never return, I could see Sadia really wanting to fill in those shoes of being like, now I need to help people. I need to make this world better. So I could see that splash happening for her on that end as well. But at the same time, I could also see this as a reason that some of the Loy family begins to return to Dol Makyar. As we know, they are a quite important family as far as the grand scheme of the world goes, right? Like, they made the Pariah Blades. They were part of taking down the gods during the Shapers' War. And we know that most of them have left to go east. And if Tysha were to be killed off in cold blood, or even just killed off by another Sundered House, I do think a lot of them would come back from the east and sort of try to fix the issues that are being caused by the Sundered Houses. This respected, powerful family returning to Dol Makyar would be a huge symbol for the story and for the people of the city. Seeing this group of people going, you guys have taken things too far. You're being problematic. Keep in mind, this is a family who has an entire wing dedicated to them in a museum. This is an important group. I get the feeling that a lot of people would respect what they are saying way more than what the Sundered Houses are doing right now, which is putting their foot down and trying to squash people out underneath it. But if the Loy family were to come back, they'd be like, no, we need to lift everybody up. We need to be together as a group. And I could truly see the Loy family coming in, making a large portion of the population of Dol Makyar shift against the Sundered Houses, which I think would be really cool and really fun to see. But this only happens, in my opinion, if Tysha's killed off in cold blood in some sort of fashion, and then word gets out to the east, and they're able to, get the Loy family back. Maybe they'd feel it through the old path, right? The powers of the old path and the powers of nature. They would feel her death through it and be like, okay, something's fucked up here. We need to go home. And I think that would be a really cool moment to eventually see. And then she picks up playing, Abria picks up playing as a character who comes back as, a Loy as well, right? Like, I think that would be really cool. For like the familiar connection to sort of continue to be played up would be a lot of fun. But yeah, that's what I think about like the story impact of characters dying. Hal and Tysha to me are the ones who would leave like the biggest impact currently on the world. And that is based on the first 4 episodes. So as we move forward into the story, if once we learn more about characters, this is obviously going to shift. But as of right now, the characters who I think that would leave the biggest impact on the story if they died is Hal and Tysha. So I want to hear your guys' predictions to who you believe is going to die first in the story. And I want to also know who you guys think is going to be the most impactful death if they were to die. So I think that's all I have to say. And I will see you guys on Tuesday for whatever video I make next. Peace. And lastly, I just want to thank the members of the channel. We have 2 members in the Bandit level, which is Tom Koch and Eric Cunningham. And in the Rogue tier, we have Trentley's Tabletop. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. And if anyone else wants a special shout out at the end, just like these 3, become a member today.